And as he said, I'm a special agent with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency now. Prior to that, I was a forestry investigator with the Alabama Forestry Commission from 2002 until January 2015. And everybody may or may not know that under the new law enforcement plan, a lot of legacy agencies, to include the Forestry Investigative Unit, were absorbed into the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, which is comprised of two sides, a patrol side and an investigative side. And we fell under the investigative side under what's called the Agricultural and Rural Crimes Unit, or ARCU. And you'll probably see that in my presentation. You see ARCU, that's just the Ag and Rural Crimes Unit. A little history about the Rural Crimes Unit. It's formed in 2013 when Governor Bentley made a formal announcement. It was created under the State Law Enforcement Act in 2013 during legislative session. Today, there are 17 special agents assigned to the unit, and we're from various agencies. Forestry, ABI, the old Ag and Industries investigators. I think there's two guys that were with agriculture at the time, and some enforcement guys from ABC. So we've got a lot of experience in the unit. Some of those guys have a lot of experience in working major crimes, murders, homicides. Some of them are landowners. They've got some knowledge of timber and forestry because their families own land. And then there's the 7 of us that came over from forestry that most of us have a forestry background. This is a map showing you kind of how we're staffed at the time. The law enforcement agency is divided into divisions, and they took on the same divisional areas as I guess FEMA or the Alabama Emergency Management Agency. And there's 7 divisions, and right now, for the most part, with an exception or two, there's 2 agents assigned to a division. Now, we're assigned on paper. Pretty much we can go wherever they need us to go, and we do that pretty regularly. But that's kind of how we're laid out. What is the mission of the Rural Crimes Unit? Now, he mentioned something about talking to you about arson investigation. There's been some role changes, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But the primary mission of our unit is to prevent, deter, investigate, and assist in agricultural-related investigations throughout the state. Our investigations range from livestock-related crimes, timber crimes, heavy equipment crimes, illegal substances, and any other associated rural thefts that might occur out there in a rural situation. We also, from time to time, get asked to assist the major crimes agents with things like murders and kind of high-profile investigations as they need help. About 2 weeks ago, I was about this close to getting involved in my first murder investigation in East Brooklyn. And I'm kind of glad I didn't at the time because I had other things I needed to be doing. And those things do go on and on and on. Once you get involved in a case like that, it goes on for a long time. Since the unit's inception, there's been a little over $2 million worth of equipment that's been recovered and numerous arrests made throughout the state. So we've picked up a lot of equipment out there that's been stolen and gotten it back to the proper owners. I'd worked about 10 days when I got involved in an equipment theft that actually came from Houston County and trucked it right on through Bruton. So I was able to intercept that and get that stuff back to the people it was stolen from. Okay, role changes. What has changed? The primary investigative responsibilities we talked about was ag and forestry related thefts, to include heavy equipment, the livestock abuse, neglect, and theft cases we work, ag terrorism, other specific crimes. What you notice is our unit's not directly involved with fire investigations anymore. That role has changed for us as what we were used to doing. The new Rural Crimes hotline number is 855-75-CRIME. There's also a website at arcu.alabama.gov where you can go online and report rural crimes that way. And if you go on our website, that's pretty much what you're going to run across is this little spiel about what the unit is and what they do and our hotline numbers. Some other key information that you might need to know as a landowner. The unit was not created so that they would be a replacement for sheriff's offices and city police departments. In fact, a lot of times we're assisting these guys now when they get calls to go out to rural crimes. Sometimes they're a little intimidated by things they don't understand, especially with logging equipment, heavy equipment that a deputy or a city policeman might not understand exactly what that piece of equipment is. So we get calls to go out and assist these agencies with these type crimes. We have an officer down in Baldwin County who's assigned primarily to do outreach. And what he does is he goes to these sheriff's offices, these police departments, and he tries to formulate a working relationship with these guys so that we know what each other do, we know how to contact each other. And so when they have a situation, if they respond out to it first, they've got a little bit better understanding of what the laws are that deal especially with animals and agriculture, and how to kind of size that up and determine whether they think they can handle it at that point or whether they need to pass it on to us, and then we can take it from there. But that goes on a regular basis so that we can promote a better response for the rural citizen, so that they don't have to wait for somebody to get over there 3 counties away or get over there tomorrow. If the sheriff's offices are a little better trained on these rural crimes, they can get there today. And sometimes time is of the essence when you work these cases. Do not hesitate to call them first. Even though it's a rural crime and there's an agency out there, if there's an urgent need, call them and get them there. Because like I said, some things, evidence is very short-lived in some cases, and you need somebody there to get on that quick. If it's more than they can handle, they will call us and we will take it from there. Again, in any emergency, as a forest landowner, if you've got a crime happening on your property right now, call 911 and get the closest unit there to help. Don't wait around to try to wonder which hotline I should call or which agency's handling what. 911 will handle your call and they will get somebody there. Okay, some other role changes. Like I said, we were forestry investigators. We got merged over into the new agency, so the roles have changed there. Most people as forest landowners knew that the Forestry Commission handled forestry-related crimes. At this time, they no longer perform that function, whether you knew that or didn't know that. The hotlines and the county office numbers that a lot of landowners knew and dealt with every day, that's not what we're asking people to use those numbers in contacts to report these crimes. And the reason we're asking people not to do that is not to exclude them, but the more people you put in that chain of information, the less likely it is to get properly routed where it needs to go. So what we're encouraging people to do is to use the numbers directly to the agencies responsible for that. And that's the purpose of us being here today, so that you know now who's handling these crimes and how to get in contact with them. Cell phones and email addresses that the old forestry investigators had. The Southern Link phones still work for right now. Those numbers are still good, but our email addresses and phone numbers have been changed. And I know myself personally, I couldn't tell you how many landowners and forestry industry people that had my phone number and link number, and a lot of them still do. But we're trying to, as we make new contacts with these people, get them current on what our new numbers and addresses are. And most all of us are first name dot last name at ALEA.gov. So if you knew your forestry investigator personally, and you know his first and last name, his email address has just changed from forestry to ALEA.gov. Now, the Forestry Commission is still responsible for issuing burning permits and the suppression of wildfire. So if you need a burn permit, that's who you're going to need to get it from. That did not change. And the suppression of the wildland fires, that did not change. They're still responsible for that function. The fire investigations, and I highlighted investigations because, again, the permits and the suppression, that's a responsibility of the Alabama Forestry Commission. But under this new merger, all the investigations on arson and illegal burning are now handled by the State Fire Marshal's office. And that particular office number in Montgomery is listed there, 334-241-4166. They also have an arson tip line number that you can call and report any suspicious arson or fire criminal activity. So those are the numbers that you would need to call as a forest landowner to report criminal activity related to wildland fires. We'll talk a little bit about timber crimes and enforcement. And I want to talk a little bit just basically about statistics, but a little bit more about timber theft cases, boundary trespass case issues. What are the issues with these cases? And what does it really take to make one of these cases? A lot of people have a big misconception about what it takes. And an update on the law, the Protecting Alabama's Elders Act, that I personally think is going to be a very good statute for the forest landowner, and I'll explain why. Okay, statistically, in the United States, dollar losses from timber theft are reported to be comparable to shoplifting. And if you put that in perspective, you think about all the retail stores in the United States and how much shoplifting goes on. The estimates are that those losses are about $1 billion a year. In comparison, auto theft is about $8 billion a year. And what strikes me funny is, in your larger cities and municipalities, sheriff's offices, big departments, they have task forces assigned to work auto theft alone. That's all they do is work auto theft. But in the timber theft investigation side of it, we work the state with 15 men. So when you look at $1 billion a year in loss compared to $8 billion in auto theft, I mean, it's pretty easy to see that it's not really petty theft. It's some big money. $1 billion a year, big money. Unfortunately, within the legal system sometimes, and even inside the business, it's not looked at as being important. It's just often viewed as just it's a petty crime. It's a normal thing. That's just part of it. We've had several people we've interrogated that's confessed to things, you know, like it's not really stealing. Everybody's doing it. It'd be a shorter list if I wrote down who wasn't doing it. I mean, that's what a guy told me on tape. He said, I can't tell you who all was doing it, but the list would be a lot shorter if I told you who wasn't doing it. So, I mean, that's how it's looked at. You know, you ask yourself in the time that we live in now, why is this still a problem? It's been going on a long time. I've been working at 14 years. It's going on when I got here. It's going on today. It'll be going on long after I'm gone, I'm sure. But why is it still going on? I mean, number one reason is money in it. It's easy to get away with. Very easy to get in court and explain it away as mistakes, counting errors. Just didn't mean to do it. Wasn't paying attention. Most of these crimes happen out in the rural areas of the state where nobody's really looking. And they're pretty well aware that nobody's looking. And a lot of times that's one of the catalysts for them doing what they're doing is they realize nobody's looking. And they try something, find out nobody's looking, and they move forward with it. Big reason is the citizens in the state, which make up the juries in the court system. They don't really understand about timber and agriculture. You don't own land or a farm, or you didn't come up in that environment. Most of the people on the jury are not going to understand. And what is hard to understand unless you've sat through a jury selection is the defense gets a chance to strike jurors. And the first people they're going to strike is anybody in law enforcement, anybody that owns land, anybody that has any knowledge, works in the business. If he can strike you, you won't be on that jury. So what you typically wind up with is 12 people and 2 alternates sitting in the box that really don't even know what the case is about. And they certainly don't understand the terminologies that gets presented in this business. Forestry has its own set of terms, and we understand what they mean, but the common person doesn't. So when you get 12 people up there that don't know what you're talking about, it's hard to sell your case to those people. Very few thefts are actually reported as opposed to what happens. A lot of times we'll get a call about a complaint and they'll tell you about 2 other people they knew that had the same thing happen. They never report it because they just didn't feel like nobody was interested. Maybe they called the sheriff's office a few years ago, nobody came out. They just didn't feel like nobody was interested and didn't want to help them. So they just ate it and said, oh well. Those that are reported and cases get made on them, very few of them ever get prosecuted because the jails are full, the dockets are backlogged. So what happens is most of them plea out to some kind of lesser charge, or they agree to pay the money back, pay it back with interest. A lot of people that are victims, they just wanted their money anyway. They don't want to go through that whole lengthy process and be put on the stand and go through all that fun stuff you have to do to get a case through court. So if they get a shot at getting their money and getting out of there, they drop it. So a lot of them never get prosecuted because they plea out. The general public looks at this as property crime. They're just taking some trees, or they just took some parts off some logging equipment, stole some tires, didn't really get anybody hurt, didn't harm anybody, so I mean that's their opinion of it. It's property crime, it ain't a people crime. You know, when you have to look at it from the court system, somebody goes in and commits a violent assault or a robbery, and you got that on the docket, and you got somebody stole a load of wood on the docket. I mean, what do you think the DA is interested in prosecuting? He's going to prosecute that newsmaker crime. People got hurt, people got prosecuted for that. That's a newsmaker. This other stuff, it's just not as, we call it not as sexy. It's just not something people are interested in. And inside the business, we've had several people that tell us that that's not stealing. To go out and rip off somebody's logging equipment or buy something from somebody that ripped off some logging equipment, they buy it for way less than market value. And I mean, I had a guy on tape in the jail saying that's not stealing. I didn't steal that. But he bought it. In fact, he solicited the guy to steal it so he could buy it. But in his mind, I didn't steal. That's not stealing. I'm going broke. I needed it. He had it. It's a good deal. Ain't really stealing. So, I mean, that mindset is why it continues to go on. Okay, I'm running short on time, so I'm going to jump through this right quick. Just some need to knows. A boundary trespass case. And there's no such law on the books as timber trespass. A lot of people say, oh, I want to report a timber trespass. Well, there's no such law. I challenge you to find it. It's not in statutes anywhere. There's criminal trespass, which is designed for somebody being on property they know they're not supposed to be there and they're there anyway. Well, the problem is how do you put that in a case file when the guy's supposed to be over here doing a legitimate job and he's logging and he gets across the line? So what is it you got to have before you make a case on this guy for stealing or unauthorized cutting? And you got to be able to prove intent. You got to prove he's knowingly and willfully on your land doing what he's doing. I mean, how do you do that? You need to document by visible boundary lines, major timber type change, flagged boundaries, and if you document that in any way, photo and video that. If it takes the line trees down, then they're not there when I get there, so I don't have any photographic evidence that there ever was a line. But if you did, then that just strengthens the case. So you need to document that. A lot of times when you don't have those key elements present, the DA wants to refer it to civil court because he doesn't feel like he can prove they intentionally went on your property. Nothing there to tell him where your property was. You need to get a professional estimate of your value and your property damages, because as ARCU agents, even as forestry agents, we cannot go out and do a stump cruise and give you value estimates and act as your attorneys. Negotiate settlements, tell you whether that's a fair offer or not. We can't do that. We gather evidence to make a criminal case, and that's what we can do. Right quick, the timber theft cases. I mean, always have something in writing. All the cases I've worked, the ones that are nightmares for us to try to work with is when it's just a verbal agreement, not even a handshake. He said, she said. But that something in writing protects you as to what they were supposed to do and not supposed to do. You have to have a reasonable suspicion that there's some criminal activity taking place before we can start investigating people. And to put that in perspective, how would you like to be investigated because your neighbor thought you were doing something at your house? And that's all he said. I just think he's up to something. And so, would you want to be investigated on that? I mean, you've got to have reasonable suspicion. That's the law. Hunches and suspicions, or I don't think it's right, I don't think it's enough money, I think something happened. That's tough for us to go in and tell a DA we want to subpoena his bank account because you think something happened. You're not going to get permission to invade somebody's privacy on that. Prior to calling, in these lack of payment cases and things where they didn't pay the money, they didn't give you any tickets, any scale tickets, prior to calling us for an investigation, go ahead and send them a certified request for your stuff. Because the law says you have to prove he intends to deprive you of your property. So if you didn't ask for it, and he hadn't refused, then how do you prove he intends to deprive you? You send him certified mail and tell him I need something in 30 days or I'm going further with it. He doesn't respond to that, then that's something I can show the DA and say he intends to deprive because he already had a request and he's ignored it. Just remember, we have to be able to prove that there's a criminal intent to deprive you of your property. And just right quick, the Alabama Elders Law, I know I'm running thin on time. This is something I think is important. This law passed in 2014. Protecting Alabama's elders, one of the statutes under there is financial exploitation of an elderly person. The beauty of that is you don't have to really be elderly to qualify. 60 plus. Years ago, I was told the average age of landowners in Alabama is 55 years old, so that means that most landowners are going to fit into this category. The beauty of this thing, in my opinion, is in the past, under theft, we had a 3-year statute of limitations. So if you didn't discover the crime till it was done 2 years ago, we had a year to get it together, get it in court, get a formal charge before the statute ran out. This gives us 7 years statute of limitations, which I think is great. The beauty of it, the real beauty of it is we don't have to prosecute that in any particular place. Any county where any part of that crime took place, we can prosecute it. We can also prosecute it in the county of the victim's residence. And where I think that's important is, one, it doesn't drag people of that age all over the state to go to court. A lot of people don't want to do that. They feel more comfortable doing it at home than they would 2 or 3 counties over. But the other beauty of that too is that's a county where most of those landowners are well known. You get a jury of your peers up there that know you in that county, that stacks it in your favor a little better than it does if you own land 3 counties away and it has to happen there. It can happen in your county of residence. So I really believe that as we start to apply this is going to be a good statute for us to operate under where it applies. And that's just a little fodder to look at, that we are publicizing recoveries and arrests. I think that's something you have to do until people believe it'll happen. You don't deter people if they don't think anything's going to happen. And that's all I've got.